Hello everyone and welcome to lecture 9. On this lecture we're going to talk about two topics. We're going to talk about the topic of waste and the topic of product. Let me make just a quick switch here. So we're going to talk about the different type of waste that we are producing as human. We're going to talk about the way we dispose of those waste, and then we will look also on how we can reduce that waste, looking at how we can design product to make that waste less harmful to the environment and also less in terms of quantity. So the main topic will be kind of broad for that lecture. And after Wally, let's start with a dad's joke asking you why no one talked to the garbage man. It's just because he talks trash. I know, it was pitiful. Anyway, this lecture and this recording will be divided in 5 steps or 5 subcategories. We'll talk about the different type of waste. Then we'll briefly talk about electronics and food waste. Food, we already mentioned about it in a previous lecture. We'll look at how we're disposing waste, then looking at how to reduce waste, and looking finally at the design of products to make them more sustainable and make our consumption more sustainable. So without wasting more time, thank you. Sorry for the joke. Let's start with the different type of waste we are making. There are different ways to categorize the type of waste we're making. And so we can look at the origin of waste based on our activity. We're talking about human waste at this point. We have waste coming from our extraction of resources from the soil, coming from the mining sector in itself. Again, all about the extraction of resources from the soil. We have waste related to the agricultural sector and forestry sector. Then we have a lot of waste coming from the industry sector. After all, we also, us, from residential places, household, commercial, cities, we are making also waste. Construction and demolition are producing some consequent waste. And finally, the wastewater treatment can also be considered waste. The water, fresh water that we're using from our home, the gray water, the black water, all of this can be considered as waste. If we want to simplify it, we can just look at the waste as 2 different categories. What is organic versus what is not organic. The organic will be biodegradable waste, as we can see right here, where mostly this waste can go into compost and being part of the nutrient cycle. And the non-biodegradable waste, which mostly is made of all the product we are creating from plastic and stuff. That could be paper or carton board, but that tend to be, unfortunately, in contact with food or other type of product that may be toxic. And so all of that, unfortunately, doesn't enter in the nutrient part. Generally, after when we dispose of waste, and that will be something that we'll talk later on, we can generally have 2 or 3 garbage bin. We'll have the general waste, where we throw everything that we don't know what to do with. We have the biodegradable waste, which is mostly, in most of the city, will be the green garbage, where we throw all the landscaping stuff. We have then what we know can be recyclable, and not in our case for residential, but also there is a way that would be considered hazardous, mostly coming from industry and other sectors. So if we look at the waste we're producing, the majority of the waste is in fact industrial, because of our way of, in some way of being a society relying a lot of consumption and production. Our industries produce a lot of waste. As you can see, it's about 3/4 of the waste that we produce in the US as solid waste, okay, is in fact industrial. And within this waste, we can separate the type of waste we're dealing with. Most of it is chemical, coming from the different manufacturing of our product. There is some waste also linked to fossil fuel, and then you can see metal, etc., pesticides coming from that part. Then after that, we have some special waste. Mostly the special waste will be related to, for example, the hospital sector, medical sector, some kind of way that needs to be properly managed because it can be dangerous, toxic. And then we have a small percent coming from demolition, but those produce very large volume of waste. They are maybe less in quantity, but the volume is big. And then what we call municipal solid waste, which is our trash, our garbage, for about 2%. Of course, the richer a country is, it's better. The better the economy of a country is, the more consumption, and so the more waste we produce. So it's not surprising that low-income nations produce less solid waste than high-income nations, but also the type of waste they produce is different. Low-income nations produce more organic waste, which is better because it can go into the nutrient cycle. It's compostable. It can be biodegradable. And so this type of waste is better than what we unfortunately use in our richer country, which is a lot of plastic, metal, and other things that tend to be less easy to handle in terms of the recycling part. So we do face this issue of an increasing economy in countries that is leading to an increase in a way that is more and more difficult to manage. If we look at this information right here, we can see that in the US, the production of waste has increased, and it has constantly increased. We mostly are able to do a straight line. However, what we can see is at least a good point. More recently, we have not reduced, but we have stabilized our production of waste as per capita, meaning like if we're looking at the waste produced by each people, we have reached a plateau since the last 20 years, more or less. We have not increased so much our waste production. We were initially doing it, but you see that over the last 30 years, more or less, we are reaching a plateau. So this is at least a good sign showing that we have been able to reduce, well, not to reduce, but to stop our production of waste. Of course, the increase of waste comes from our increasing population. We have more population in our country, which makes us producing more waste. Then we see that in terms of waste generation, the high income produce a lot of waste, but mostly it's interesting that it's expecting that the low middle class will be producing even more waste generation in a couple of years than the high income class. But if we look at per capita, definitely, the richer you are, the more waste you are producing. This is a fact. And that is something that us, part of the US, have to work on. We should be able to consume maybe smartly, differently, to be able to reduce our waste, which you will see is not always easy to handle, to dispose of, and in particular, the type of new consumption we're having in terms of food, in terms of electronics, makes it even harder to deal with. But that will be the topic of our next video. So see you in video number 2.